Alright, excuse me. Today is going to be the same as yesterday. We just start stripping everything off till we get to it. So let's get started. Get the power steering pump off. There's been a while since I've done this, but I believe there's 5 fasteners that hold it on. 1, 2, 3. There's one down here underneath or behind the pulley. You can take a nut off the back side, and then there's one underneath the pulley over here on this side. I don't exactly remember how I got to that one. We'll figure it out here in a little bit. And then there. The only other way to get, I was wrong, there's 6 bolts, I do remember this now. That back bolt, you have to take this pulley off to get to this lower bolt. Now I remember correctly last time I did the same thing. After you get all this out, the 4 main studs, you can pry this away because it's just on a flimsy little bracket. So that's what I did. Get the heater core hoses out of the way next here. I just took that whole bracket off the back of the alternator mount because I'm having too much trouble getting these out. They're pretty brittle and I started breaking them, so sometimes that's the easiest way. That's the bulk connector for your CPI injection system. Just undoing the spark plug wires now, right off the distributor cap. All I did was mark them so that I didn't have to trace them whenever I got to put them back on. I got to take the fuel lines off now. So what I'm going to do is put my pressure gauge on the Schrader valve, and if there is pressure in it, I'm going to bleed it. It bled off overnight. Get that distributor cap off, that'll make it a heck of a lot easier. Alright, before we go any further, I figured I'd try to get you somewhat of a close-up. Those are those two fuel lines I was trying to get off. And the nuts are on the back side of this. I can't even get the camera down in there to show you. But you can see, kinda, a little better light here, that I have this one off. You can see the fitting right there. To get the other one, I'm going to pull the distributor cap off. And to do that, it's a T20 Torx. And you just see that slot there? And then this one on the back side, you just take your Torx bit and you run it down that slot until you end up hitting the screw. That's how you get that off. I mean, I can't get you any closer than any of that. This is really tight in here. So we'll get back to it here. Removing the distributor right now. Or not distributor, distributor cap. We'll be removing the distributor a little bit later. And there's a distributor cap. You can see one screw there, one screw there. We'll hold this up with bungee cord. I'll show you this here real quick too. Alright, besides this thing not leaking when you put it all back together, this is going to be the second most important thing that you do. This is your rotor. This is what sends spark from your coil to the pickups and the distributor cap to each individual spark plug. This is your timing basically, you know, your ignition timing. I shouldn't say basically, it is. When you pull this distributor up out of there, you got to get it put down in the exact same place because this is not an adjustable distributor. It's keyed. It only goes in, the shaft only goes in one way. And coming out of the shaft is the actual distributor shaft that goes down to your cam gear. that gear is helical. So when you pull it up out, the rotor is going to turn no matter what you do. So what you got to do is mark this somewhere. And there is one electrical connection on the back of the distributor. Right there, that's for your ignition module. So yeah, that's pretty damn important. You got to get that right. Like I said, whenever you put it in, it's going to spin, so you have to offset it one tooth so it spins back the right way when you're setting it down in. What I'll do is when I pull it up out, I'll keep my thumb on it I'll keep my thumb on the rotor. As I'm pulling it up out, I will let it spin, then I'll stop it, then I'll mark it on the housing down here somewhere. Then that way, whenever I go to put it back in, I'll line this up with the housing mark, and then when I put it in, it'll spin itself right back to where I need it to go. Alright, put you back in a stand. You can just watch me struggle taking everything else apart. Alright, here we go. I'm going to fight some more with this fuel line. I got it loose. It's almost impossible to get it off with that distributor cap on. Alright, they're both off. Got my electrical connection from my distributor off. Now before I go any further, I'm going to tape this blue rag on here, and then I'm going to take, well, I won't even tape it, I'll just hold it and I'll stuff a rag in here. Then I'm going to take shop air and blow all the dirt off of this, because I don't want anything falling down in there when I pull this manifold off. You're going to get a little bit, it's impossible, but you just got to make sure you clean up real good. So that's the direction we're headed now. Alright, I think that's it. I am going to pull this upper intake off. That way it gives me a better view of the distributor. Makes me feel better about doing it. Several 10mm studs and nuts. There's washers on those too, so don't lose the washers. I think that's it. Now when you pull these out, there's O-rings that go on here. They're now stuck in this hole. Make sure they're in there. Then this bolt connector will just slide down through. You're gonna have to give me a break. Like I said, it's been a year since I've done one of these. I'm allowed to make mistakes. Alright. Alright, here's a distributor out. Show you what I do here. That's how it was positioned when it was down inside the motor. Alright, you see, I marked my rotor and I marked my distributor housing. After I pulled it up out, that's how it was positioned. So when I put it back down in, I'll put it down in that position and make sure when it goes down in, it turns over to the other position. And the reason why it turns is because of that helical gear. You can see the way it's mounted. That mounting bracket isn't a permanent part of the fixture. You can take that off, but it's got flat spots. So theoretically, you could put this in 180 degrees backwards if you pull this off and stick it on from this side. But your best bet is to just leave all that on. And this has never failed me. I mean, if you get it off a tooth, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if it'll run, but run poorly, if it'll run okay and the computer will compensate for it. I don't know, because I've never put them in wrong. So that's all I got for you on that. Next we'll get to tearing the lower intake off. Alright, I got the 8 bolts loose that hold the intake manifold on. And the wiring harness out of my way to the best of my capabilities. There's not a lot of play with these things. Oh. I forgot one. I only did 7. No, that's all of them. Now we'll just break it free. And it's broke free. So we'll bring it up out. And that's it. We got her. You want to look in here real good. If anything fell off, anything dropped, you got to get it out of there. All right. You can see that I have rags in every single port on here and covering the valve train. Yeah, and you have to do this. You gotta be really careful about this, because whatever you drop down in here goes through your engine. And I know somebody's gonna say, well, that's what your filter's for. Well, yeah, but if you drop it in here, it goes through the engine, then it goes to the filter. So this is pretty important. Make sure you do this right, because you gotta clean all this. You have to clean all that gasket material off, all that sludge. You gotta get all that crap nice and clean so that the new gasket will do its job. You gotta clean here, and the same thing on that back right there, so you can put silicone back there. So make sure you do that. Do a good job of it. Take your time. Place the rags properly. And the way you stuff these in, you stuff them down in like that and then tuck them in. That way it almost forms like a cup. So that when you pull this top edge out, you pull anything you drop off in there and it falls into here, and then you do the same thing with these. You just fold them up so that nothing falls off. So that's it. We'll get to cleaning this up. You get a rag soaked with brake parts cleaner. Want to get everything a good wipe down before we start scraping. Makes it a lot easier. Get all the heavy sludge off, all the grease and oil. Then you go after it with your scraper. See, my rag is doing its job. And once you get all your scraping done, take a wire brush and clean it up even better. I have a better tool for that. I'll go get it.